Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel Climbinator 1978 or 1978, whichever way you wanna pronounce it. And today we will be looking at a film that was released 6 months ago. And I've only just got around to watching it for the 3rd time. First time on DVD, in fact, but I saw it twice in cinema. Yes, for all my sins in my cinematic life, I've watched Until Dawn, the movie, twice in cinemas, and once again on DVD. Why am I reviewing it? So that you don't have to watch it anymore. Aren't I good to you all? Anyway, that should give you a bit of an impression on the quality of the film. Aye. Now, before I go on, I just want to state that I have played the video game this is based on, which is like an interactive film in itself. So you'd think, for those who don't know, that Until Dawn doesn't really need a movie adaptation. Obviously, some plank at Sony Studios thought, wait a minute, Until Dawn is a very popular video game, but it's not really a video game. It's really more of an interactive film, but it's still a video game nonetheless, and it makes money for us. We'll make a movie of it. And then another executive probably came into the office and said, yeah, but there's one problem. You said it's pretty much an interactive movie. Yeah, but the thing is, Tony, the thing is, it makes money for us. So what we'll do is, instead of adapting the game's narrative, yeah, what we'll do is we'll have, we'll make a few changes, right? And we'll scrap the story that the game has. We'll scrap all the characters, yeah? And we'll come up with a new story and a new bunch of characters and a whole new location. But we'll just call it Until Dawn in name only. Yeah? 'Cause that'll work. Okay, Ed. Yeah, that will work. Yeah. Yeah, 'cause it really worked out for him, didn't it? You bunch of boneheads at Sony. God damn it. Oh. Right. Until Dawn, the 2025 film. Let's review it. A bit of a backstory. First, the director of the film stated, I believe, according to IMDb, good old IMDb, my lifelong sidekick in film knowledge. Apparently, the director said he did not wish to adapt the game's narrative, otherwise the film would be about 10 hours long. Understandable, he feels that way, but then if that's the case, why didn't he just make a film that focused on the slasher aspect of the game, which, is basically the first half of the game? Come on! And make a different character turn out to be the killer, so that it wouldn't be too predictable. Or you could even have 2 killers. Mix it up a little bit. I know a lot of fans probably would not like that, but when it comes to adaptations, you have to mix it up a little bit for the casual film goer. Then, if the film should be successful enough, you make a second part which focuses on the Wendigos. Spoiler alert for those who haven't played the game, but if you haven't played a game that's 10 years old, it's on you. Anyway, yes, if the film should have been successful enough, you make the second part about the Wendigos. If it doesn't become successful enough, then guess what? You still have a solid film if you did it that way. But what do we get? Well, I'll explain. We get a film that has nothing to do with the game's plot, apart from the Wendigos. Oh boy, we get the Wendigos, and we do get the slasher, but he's just botched completely. None of the characters from the game return, except for Josh, who's like in a blink and you'll miss him cameo, and he doesn't physically appear in the film. Dr. Hill does, correction. Dr. Hill does appear in the film, but he's not used in the same capacity. In the game, he's used as like a red herring to interlink between the players and the game's narrative. In the film, I'm going to spoil it for you, but there's nothing to spoil really. But he is just the complete villain. And he's played by the actor who played him in the game, who did all the new word I've discovered there. But anyway, he's played by the actor who not only did the motion capture in the game, but also the voice for him, Peter Stormare. And I will admit, he is creepy in this, really creepy. But the plot is just nonsense in this. It makes no sense. I mean, to be fair, on rewatches, the story isn't bad. Well, not far off not being bad, at least. But it's botched in execution. You know you've got a bad movie here when I'm finding the best way to try and find some positives in describing it. Basically, these bunch of randoms find themselves stranded at this remote house in the middle of the woods. I think it's literally called Steelport, not to be confused with Saints Row, but that would have been a turn up for the books. Yeah. And they're drawn there because the sister of one of them has gone missing in that neck of the woods. We see how she goes missing at the beginning of the film, and I shit you not, the name of the lead female, the lead woman in this film is Clover. And every time I heard her name, I just couldn't help but think of a box of butter. If you're British, you know what that means. But, yeah. The biggest sin with the characters in this film is that they're just interchangeable. There's a couple of performances I thought, stood out a little bit more than the others, like Nina, played by Odysseia Adlon. I think that's her name. I hope I'm getting her name right. She's like the kooky one, the cheeky one, the sassy one out of the ladies. And then you got the nerdy guy. And apart from that, the others are just bland. Even Clover's rather bland until the final half hour. In fact, there's a part in the film where Clover gets infected with a curse that turns her evil. I shit you not there. Clover actually kills one of her own friends. And I was like, okay, that happened. And I was, I thought, what, she developing a personality all of a sudden? But what really holds the film back is that the characters get trapped in this creepy house in the middle of the woods. Fine, good setting, and the house looks really creepy. Fine. But every 10, 15 minutes or so, you get these sequences where all the characters die and then they're resurrected. Now, I remember when I saw this in the cinema the first time, I thought, what the fuck? When I saw that first death sequence, I thought, what the fuck? You killed off the whole cast of characters. Please tell me there's like a backup cast of characters. And then it showed them all resurrected. I thought, tell me that was a dream. Like one of them's, had a nightmare or something. Or got psychic abilities. Seeing something bad is heading their way. No. Nothing like that happens. And it's one of those films that whenever you think you're getting close to answers on things like that kind of illogic, there's something that blocks the path of finding out what the answer is. And it never gets answered. At all. So in other words, the film ends, yeah? You never find out anything about how the characters got resurrected. They're not zombies or anything, they're human. They're just, and it's something to do with that place. And I sat there in the cinema thinking, what? That's not how the game works. That's nothing to do with the game. In the game, the first half is where some serial killer is trying to chase down you and your friends, and it's down to your decision making that actually saves your friends and your character. In the second half, it's the Wendigos that are trying to kill you. And there are like a dozen or so endings, depending on how well you do. Like, there's an ending where everyone can survive, I heard. Same as there's an ending where everyone dies. The first time I played the video game, only one character survived. I think it was Ash. Second time, there was about 3 survivors. But I thought the cast were okay. Not the best assorted cast I've seen in a horror film. But there are some intense scenes. In fact, quite a lot of them are. But it was just the death scenes become illogical. They never get explained. And there's hardly any continuity between the games and the film. No link really, apart from one or two minor things. I thought, you could have made this a prequel. And the final shot of the film strongly hints that, but it's not enough. And you kill Dr. Hill off, but then you hear him breathe at the end. It's just ridiculous. And I even noticed a goof on my rewatch just now, where before I get to revealing what that goof is, I have to explain the most hilarious scene I watched in the film. I'll never forget my reaction to it. After, I think it's the third resurrection, the whole cast of characters are all sat in a bathroom. And this is the most hilarious bathroom scene in a horror film since Night Killer from 1990. I'm not going to tell you what happens in that film because it's way too extreme. But yeah, that film is something else. But in this film, what happens is these characters find out they now have a supply of water in Until Dawn. So they all decide to take a sip of water from one glass. And then, as they're having a conversation, they all, one by one, begin to explode in pools of blood. Yep, because of water. Anyway, later on in the film, I noticed that the heroine and the villain are locked in the villain's office, and the villain's warbling on and on. Dr. Hill, he's saying blah, 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 blah. I wasn't really keeping track on what he was talking about, apart from the fact he was saying that fear is the most significant feeling you can have in your life, because you learn to encounter what is the most terrifying aspects of your life and you learn how to overcome them. I thought, dude, get a hobby. And the heroine sees that one of the water pipes in his ceiling is leaking because it's dripping water. So she tilts his cup of tea over towards the leakage. And then when it's got a few drops of water in it, she tilts the cup of tea back to where it was. And then, of course, the villain drinks the tea and kaboom! Yep. Insanity. But then, of course, the very last shot of the film is where you see the villain's monitors in all of his office. You hear him breathing. It focuses on one particular monitor, which is outside a mountain lodge, and you see a black SUV car pulling up. And I thought, oh, come on. You mean to tell me that this was all build up to the events of the game? Overall, this film is shit. It is really, really bad, but it's saved by the watchable performances from being totally unwatchable. It's saved from going into the Dungeon of Doom, and it's going to be in the Limbo of Livery. Honestly, Until dawn, more like until yawn.